Hi, Taehyung Lovers. Welcome back to the Taehyung Lovers channel all around the world. And this time, don't you dare skip the first 3 seconds. Because what you're about to hear is not just a K-pop idol story, not just an ordinary friendship moment. This is a fragment of time that quietly shattered the way the world sees Kim Taehyung. March 2026. It feels fast, it feels ordinary. But that's exactly where everything changed. There were no tears, no dramatic farewell, just one piercing fact. There are moments that look ordinary, but turn out to be the last. And what makes it even more shocking? All of this happened unnoticed, even by those who were inside it. In this video, we will uncover the most honest and rarely seen side of Kim Taehyung's life. Not as V of BTS, but as a human who has a place to return to called Wooga Squad. We will step into a night that at first looked simple, but is now considered one of the most emotional moments in his life journey. We will also discuss how names like Park Seo-joon, Choi Woo-shik, Park Hyung-sik, and Peakboy became part of a story that is now shaking ARMY all over the world, including a surprising fact about Kim Taehyung's voice that was quietly embedded into a piece of music. We will reveal why this dinner moment went viral again in 2026, what really happened behind those seemingly simple laughs, and why so many people feel angry, not at Taehyung, but at themselves. Because without realizing it, this story is not just about him. It's about all of us, about the last moments we never realize while we're living them. So before we go deeper, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And if you think this story deserves to be known by the world, don't hesitate to share it, so the world can always see the kindness of Kim Taehyung that may have been hidden behind the spotlight. Because after this, the way you see ordinary moments may never be the same again. March 2026 passed so quickly, so easily overlooked, yet powerful enough to make the world pause for a moment. There was no loud noise, no tears, no dramatic sign of goodbye, just a realization that came too late. That there was a moment we lived casually, with laughter, with a sense of safety, when in fact, it was the last. And when that realization finally arrived, everything had already changed. It couldn't be repeated, couldn't be fixed, couldn't be brought back. March 2026 became the point when the global public began to revisit a night from a year earlier in a much deeper way, sharper, more emotional, and far more painful. In the center of that narrative stood one figure who quietly became the focus of the world, Kim Taehyung. It records a night that was almost unheard by the outside world, yet so meaningful for those who lived it. There was no grand stage, no main camera spotlight, no pressure to be perfect. Just a simple dining table, dim lighting, and the soft clinking of glasses. There, Taehyung sat with people who did not see him as a global icon, but as an ordinary human being. They were a small circle warmly known as Wooga Squad, a friendship built not on popularity, but on time, trust, and honesty that grew slowly. At that table were names that had long been an important part of his life. Park Seo-joon, Choi Woo-shik, Park Hyung-sik, and Peakboy. They were not just friends who come and go, but a place to return to, a safe space where Taehyung didn't need to be V of BTS, but simply himself. No demands, no expectations, no burden other than being human, enjoying togetherness. The laughter that night flowed naturally, light, honest, unforced. There was no script, no attempt to create a moment. Yet that's exactly why every second felt so alive. On Kim Taehyung's face, there was a kind of happiness different from what the public usually sees. Not the smile of a superstar using cameras, but the smile of a young man who truly felt safe. But now, when that moment is replayed in memory, the laughter sounds different, deeper, heavier, as if carrying the echo of something that has already passed. Because behind that laughter, without them realizing it, time was moving away. In the middle of that casual conversation, there was a sentence that at the time sounded so ordinary, a request for permission. Taehyung had to return to his responsibilities as part BTS, return to a world waiting for him with great expectations, return to a life that did not allow him to pause for too long. There were no tears that night, no long emotional hugs, no heavy farewell words. They parted as usual, with a simple belief that they would meet again. And that is where the bitterness now feels so real. because they didn't know that the separation would last longer than they had imagined. The small details from that night have now become so significant. The food that was once seen as ordinary now feels like a symbol of the time they shared together. Every bite that once felt simple now seems to hold irreplaceable memories. Taehyung, who was often treated like a prince among them, looked like he truly enjoyed the small gestures of attention, light jokes, warm teasing, and genuine presence without conditions. In the eyes of his friends, he was not a global icon. He was someone meaningful, someone worth protecting. One fact that further strengthens how deep their bond is how Peakboy once included elements of Taehyung's voice into his music set. For some people, this might look like a simple creative experiment. But for those who understand its meaning, this is a deeply personal form of respect, a way of bringing a friend into a work, into something that can live longer than time. This is not just music, but a relationship embedded within it. When that night ended, no one felt like they were saying goodbye. They stood, smiled, and parted with a simple phrase we often say without thinking. See you again. But now the world sees it differently, because what they thought was later turned into a long stretch of time. March 2026 opened many people's eyes that the moment was not just an ordinary dinner, but a frozen fragment of time, a point where friendship reached its most honest and pure form. This story shakes people not because of drama, but because of its honesty. It touches something deeply human, our inability to recognize the last moment while we're living it. We are too busy being in it, too certain that there will always be another chance, until one day we realize that chance never came. And that's where the emotion appears, not only sadness, but also regret, even unspoken anger, not at Kim Taehyung or the Wooga Squad, but at ourselves, because we have all experienced the same thing, living a moment that feels ordinary without realizing it will be the last. In the end, this story is not just about a global idol and his circle of friends. It is about time, about how something small can turn into something most meaningful in our lives. And going back to those first 3 seconds that now feel much heavier, the world finally understands one simple yet painful truth. What leaves the deepest mark is not the farewell itself, but the fact that they once had a night like that and lived it without ever knowing it was the last. And finally, we've reached this point. A story that began with 3 seconds. Something that looks small, but turned out to be enough to change the way the world sees everything. March 2026 proved one thing we never realized before, that the most painful moment is not the goodbye itself, but the moment we realize we never knew it was the last. And in the middle of all that, one name continues to echo in the hearts of millions: Kim Taehyung. Thank you for watching until the end, because if you're still here, it means you didn't just watch, you felt it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell if you want to keep following stories that are not only viral, but also touch the deepest parts of life. If you don't like it, that's okay. Feel free to skip, because the Taehyung Lovers channel never forces anyone. But one thing is certain, stories like this will not stop here. Now it's your turn. What do you think about this moment? Have you ever experienced a last moment without realizing it? Write it in the comments, because maybe your story is part of a bigger story. This is not the end. This is just the beginning of something bigger that is yet to be revealed. Stay tuned for the next updates only on Taehyung Lovers. That concludes our meeting. Good night, stay safe, and see you again. And remember, the next time you laugh at a moment that feels ordinary, it might be the moment you will miss the most someday.